Hi, this is Ronnie and welcome to my channel. And today I'm with the Punched Out Thursday group, which is Kathy and Krista. And there's all the punches that I'm going to be using today. And I'm going to do that picture there of my grandson, and he's holding two arrows. That paper, all the papers except for the back page, is either a 6x6 piece of paper or it is a scrap. And this one was a scrap. So I'm using what I have of it, and I'm punching out 5 holes, and they're 1 3/4 inch. And I just turned them over to use the white side of them. The papers I'm using, I'm going to make sure they're all kind of mellow and not too bright, because I'm going to make targets in all 5 of those holes, and I didn't want them to be really bright. And I'm liking these colors. They were gave to me by Laura, years ago, probably 2011 or 12, and I had used a few of the they're all 6x6. I had used a few of them already, and then they got put in a paper pad that was crate paper, Boys Rules, very old one. I think there's a Boys Rules that's newer, but this was an old one. It was a paper pad, and they were in the back, and I didn't realize they were back there. But I'm using them today. I'm punching out of this paper here, and I'm going to go ahead, instead of just plain gutting it, I just punched out 6 circles, and I'm going to use them on my targets down there. And I'm layering this with 3 layers, so it's going to have triple layer. And I've got the lighter blue one, and then I've got a darker with blues and browns, and then that back one is a very dark gray. It's almost black. If you hold black up against it, it is super close to being black. This paper is pretty sturdy for a paper pad, but it doesn't have a print on the back, and I put foam tape over the whole thing, but I only took the release paper off part of it, so it'd be easier to mount onto my piece of paper. And then I pulled the other release papers off once I made sure it was straight. And here I started to put the white circles in first and then add the rest, and then I decided it'd probably be a lot easier if I made the targets on the outside of the circles and then put them in. And all of these are still mellow tones. I knew I was going to make 5, so I didn't want them bright and take away from the picture and everything else on the page. So I just made them mellow colors, and I used all scraps for it. And the red, well, looked red away from this light, which I'm under right now. So it looks more orange, but I still like it. I still think it goes with the page, and so I'm using it anyway. The first punch I was using to cut the 1 inch out, it was leaving a really jagged edge, so I had to get my old one out, which cut a whole lot better. It's super thin, so that might have been part of it. This paper here is pattern paper, but I still like the shade, so I went ahead and used it. It was a lot sturdier too. And then I'm going to use my little punch here, and that extra circle that I had, punched out 5, and they're going to make the dot in the center of this. And I am going to go ahead and use that. Even though it looks like a scrap, I'm going to use it on my page. And all these fit in really good. It don't take nothing to get them in there and get them in straight. Of course, there's no real pattern other than the circles going and getting smaller and smaller. But I do like the idea of it adding dimension with the paper, the wood grain paper popped up. And this is my picture, and it's my grandson. And he was not supposed to have arrows, and he was wanting to play with them. And if you could see close enough, see the look on his face, you'll know that he was told he couldn't play with them. But kids will be kids, and if they see something interesting, they're going to make sure that they're going to try to get a chance to get a hold of it. And yeah, but he didn't get to shoot him out a bow or nothing. He had to give them up pretty quick. He didn't have them in his hands very long at all. But he does look posed to get ready to use a bow and arrow. Now I am, let's see, what am I doing? got stickers off those sticker sheets, and they're super thin stickers, and so I've taken cardstock and put them behind them. I'm using that very dark gray, and I'm also going to use some of that orange color too. I don't think I use any other colors besides those two. But once I start using it, I had to keep doing it to make everything look like it goes together. So I did use it on several. And some of them I put more than one layer. Some I put the orange and the dark gray. So it's going to take me a few minutes to fussy cut around all of them. And I did punch out some of those arrows. And I'm going to lose one of the little ones, and I was wanting it, so I have to punch out some more just for another little one. And as soon as I punched it out, I found the little one. But yeah, see, I put that scrap up there, and I also cut it in half and put the other one down at the bottom. And this is where I punched out the bullseye of the target. And I had planned to put the word bullseye down there somewhere, but I didn't do it. I ended up forgetting about it. But my title is I'm Ready to Give This a Shot. I don't think he actually said anything, that he got caught with the arrows before he had a chance to say anything, but he was disappointed that he had to give them up. And here I cut 2 strips so I could put some orange at the top and bottom, and I didn't realize it wasn't actual 12 inches, so I had to fill in, I had to cut it apart, and I'm using that scrap piece that I had punched out and used to make the bullseye on the targets down there. I am going to actually cut this one apart first, and so I can just leave the gap to start with. And I'm going to do the top one the same way as the bottom. I'm going to use that, it's a brown flecked piece of paper, and it was just a scrap. It wasn't a whole piece, but I thought I might be able to use it on this page. I did back my piece of scrap with it, and I don't think it looks bad on there. It looks like I actually intended for it to look like that. And I'm trying to decide where to put all my bits and pieces, and of course I have to cut some more out. I decided I wanted some more orange on the page, and I think that word says score. I don't know if you actually have scores in archery. It's been so long since I did it. I was a teenager in high school, so I know you get points, but I don't know if it's actually called a score or not. That one there, that little skinny arrow that I just laid there says, go ahead, make my day. Some of the others say, this is one cool kid, he's a keeper, do it, cool, top shot, and bring it on, and the best. So there's quite a few words to go on here, but like I said, this is pretty old, and those was all I had left. That one little sheet of scrap was all I had left of the Crepe Paper Boys rule. But I'm going to add some enamel dots to give some more dimension to this layout. I do have the dimension with the targets being sunk down and the page actually being higher, and I am going to have some dimension with my enamel dots, and I did put some foam tape under a few of the other things, but not too much. But considering most of this was using scraps, I think it turns out pretty good, and I'm glad I got to use the scraps. I decided to make a cluster there over on the right hand side, and I'm gonna, well, I pull that camera out, and I like that camera. It goes good with the rad, but it don't go super good with this. But I decided I wanted a camera on here, so I went ahead and used it. I backed it in that blue, but you can't see a trim around it. I cut it all the way down to the edge of the camera. But there's extra colors on that camera that I don't really think goes with the rest of the page. So I'm going to end up covering most of that camera up and in the cluster over on the right hand side. It's not going to stay by that picture. But I'm using quite a bit of this dark gray. I am either layering in the orange or the dark gray, and that dark gray is pretty sturdy. That orange is super thin. So if I put orange around it, chances are I'm going to put another piece with it too, because the stickers on those 2 sheets there from Simple Stories are really thin, and if I add something else, it's thin, chances are I'm going to add the darker gray to make it even more sturdy. And that little cluster right there with the arrows, that's the one that says, "This is a cool kid, and he's a keeper," and then "Do It." And I used the big arrow from the arrow punch and put the sticker on top of it that says "Do It." And I pulled out one of these viewfinder wheels. It's black, and I thought about using it, but sitting right next to that brown title, it's a brown wood grain, it just didn't look quite right. So I went ahead and got my die out and cut another one in that brown flecked, and I think it looks better. I'm going to have it hanging off the side, and then I'm going to go ahead and put over to the left the excess, the part that I cut off, because I don't want it to go to waste. And then when I go back to take the pictures, I'm actually going to just die cut an edge of another one to put over there next to the cluster with the arrows on the left hand side of the picture. I thought it needed a little something more, and it needed something round since those weren't round. Of course, I did put the enamel dots there, but I am going to end up putting more with it. And here I'm looking around, I think, I was looking for that sticker right there, and I am backing it. And the reason being, I've got like a little gap there by the camera, and I thought if I went ahead and backed that one, that I would be able to fill in that space, but no, I cannot fill in that space. So I pull out some washi tape off that sticker, and it's a dark blue that I pull out, and I'm going to cut it in half and put half on one edge of that and half on the other, and I still think that's not enough, and so I'm going to pull out another sticker. And it's shaped like a yield sign, but it's got a arrow kind of like a bolt of lightning. Yeah, there it is. And of course it's thin, so I'm going to have to back it in something for it to sit there the way I want it to sit there. And part of it's going to hang off, so I'm going to end up cutting the edge that's hanging off. And I really wanted to use that over there with that other cluster on the left, but I needed to fill in that gap because it was still there no matter what. So it is going right there and fill it in. And I end up changing I noticed that the bolt of lightning kind of, it looks like an arrow, like it's going a certain way. So I end up turning it so it actually points like an arrow back into the layout. And while I've been talking, I've been going ahead and working there on the bottom of the page where all the targets are at, and I wanted things to overlap the targets. So I put some of the things that's shaped like arrows, and I put cool down there, and I also make a tiny cluster at the bottom. And here I've got the enamel dots, and I started to use the lighter almost white ones, and you will see me take and put the other ones that are just a tiny shade darker instead, because I changed my mind and decided I wanted to use those. I am getting close to being done with my layout. Before I quit the video though, before I stop with the video, I am going to put some strips up there at the top, and that's after I pick it up and look at it and make sure nothing falls off that I didn't glue down. And yeah, I guess it's about now that I decide I'm deciding I need another sticker. Can you believe that? Yeah. This one I put down there in that bottom cluster there. It's a little bit long, and that little circle thing, that scrap, is really stuck. I had a hard time, so I had to cut part of that off. And I cut it twice, and I ended up cutting too much the second time. So I've got to fill in that spot, and I'm going to do that with an enamel dot. I punched out some stars there, and I do not use one on that bottom cluster, I guess. I might have to go back and put one on there, but I don't see one on there right now. I put one on each of the targets, and one on that viewfinder over in the middle of the page, but yeah, that little punch I've had for a really long time, and I happened to run across it in a drawer the other day and decided, if I'm going to do Punched Out Thursdays, I'm going to pull that out. And right now, yeah, I'm cutting out another word. I thought I was getting close to getting done. No, really, I am, because I remember punching out those arrows again right there towards the end. So, yeah, I'm getting close to getting done. I am gluing this word down, and I think this one's cool. Yeah, and I put it right there, and I put a couple of the arrows on there, and I put foam tape on them so they'll pop up a little bit better since the targets are sunk into the paper. But yeah, really I am getting close to getting done. So I need to mention Kathy and Krista again. Make sure you check out their layouts and see what they've done with their punches today, because I'm sure that they've done something completely different from me, because every week it seems like we all three do something different. I wonder what would happen if we all do the same thing one day. This is where I add the strips of paper to the top, and I did cut my orange a little wider than I intended, so I'm going to go ahead and glue it down, and then I'm going to trim it off from the back. And that scrap there was left over from earlier, the striped one, so it's going on there too. And in the pictures at the end, you will see a tiny arrow up there. It had got punched out, and I decided I might as well go ahead and put it on the layout. And you will also see the viewfinder piece that's going to be over to the left of the picture too. I think that's the only two things I did when I was taking the pictures. And I had a hard time doing these pictures. My camera kept saying it was too hot and shutting down, and it is not hot in this house. It's 40-some degrees out. And so, yeah, it's below 70 in here. There was no reason for it to say that. I finally used my camera on my cell phone. So if these look a little different than usual, that is why. But here's the close-ups, and there's that sign with the arrow, and it's turned the wrong way, but that's fine because it's turning back into the layout. But again, be sure to check out Krista and Kathy's channel and see what they did today. If you leave a comment below, I'd love to reply. If you liked my video and would hit a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, I'd love to have you subscribe. And don't forget, I do have a giveaway going, and it ends tomorrow. Tomorrow's the last day. And so go ahead and run over there if you haven't. Put a comment on that video so you can get in on the drawing. But thank y'all so very much for watching. I hope you have a happy, scrappy week. Bye.